Good day. For today's discussion, we're going to focus on Erikson's psychosocial development with more emphasis on adolescent stage because this is the developmental stage of most senior high school students like you. And this is a continuation for our chapter 3, developmental stages of middle and late adolescence. Erikson was a developmental psychologist best known for his 8 stages of psychosocial development. His theory explains human development throughout the lifespan, which is from birth to death. Each of the 8 psychosocial development emphasizes crisis. That means in every stage there is a turning point or psychological struggles, which, if successfully met or overcome, would help strengthen one's ego. Erikson coined the term identity crisis. He spent most of his life seeking his own identity. This happened because of his life's experiences. If you would like to learn more about his biography, you can actually find it in Feist's Theories of Personality. Psychosocial development was developed because of Erikson's belief that personality development is widely influenced by society and culture. Hence, it is called psychosocial. There are a few basic points that we have to talk about before moving on to the stages of psychosocial development. Firstly, growth follows the epigenic principle. What does this mean? This means one component arises out of another and has its own time of ascendancy, but it does not entirely replace earlier components. Similar to the concept of embryology, the step-by-step growth of fetal organs. So as the development of one's ego. For example, a child should learn how to crawl before he or she can walk, or walk before he or she can run. So it's a step-by-step process. Secondly, the interactions of opposites. That is the syntonic or the harmonious and the dystonic or the disruptive elements. For example, during infancy, that's the first stage, basic trust, that's a syntonic tendency, is opposed to basic mistrust, a dystonic tendency. So the crisis during this time is called trust versus mistrust. Trust is the syntonic tendency, mistrust is the dystonic tendency. Although they are opposites, both are still important for proper adaptation, meaning not all the time that the infant's needs have to be met, otherwise he or she might become gullible and unprepared to handle the next stages of his or her life. So, let us discuss now the 8 stages of psychosocial development. The first stage is called infancy, from birth to 18 months old. Infants during this time are still dependent on how a caregiver, who usually their parents or mother, provide them with their physiological needs such as food, love, warmth, safety, and other basic needs. Once all the necessary needs are met, the child will be able to develop trust. However, if needs are not met, mistrust will take place. Mistrust possibly experienced when the caregiver is neither caring nor loving. For example, the infant is crying and starving, but the caregiver did not provide food or milk. Then mistrust will likely develop, which would lead to mistrusting, withdrawal, or strange behavior from the child. The next stage is early childhood. ages from about 18 to 3 years. The influential figures during this period is still the caregiver or are still the caregiver or the parents. Because of the newly discovered ability, the child in this time becomes assertive to walk or handle things he or she recently discovered. Sometimes the child becomes stubborn. For example, he or she wants to let go of the hands of his or her caregiver and just walk on her or his own. At this time, the child exercises autonomy. When he or she successes in things that he or she wants to do, then autonomy will be developed. However, when he or she fails, then he or she would feel shame and doubt. So when autonomy is developed, the child will be able to enhance self-control, which means the child can now do things on his or her own. Development also of the child's physical skills, since if he or she can walk without others' assistance, then he or she will enjoy doing things alone. A sense of independence, which means that this time they can already perform tasks and actions on their own. And feeling of autonomy and independence, which means they already know how to do some things on their own without having someone to tell them what to do. But yet, if shame and doubt, it could possibly result in unwillingness and defiance, which means the child may deliberately resist or disobey what the caregiver will say. Stage 3. Stage 3 is late childhood and preschool. Or in Feist, in the book of Feist and Feist, this stage is called play age. Ages about 3 to 5 years old. Understandably, a 3 to 5-year-old child still needs care and love from parents, and their growth is still widely influenced by their parents. So parents are still the influential figures at this time. During the late childhood or preschool period, children are developing motor skills and language. They also become curious. They also become imaginative and develop the ability to set goals. As children exercising the new abilities they acquire, while they become more active to initiate and to discover new things. But if they fail, and then they feel embarrassed or punished for these initiatives, they will feel a sense of guilt. Once needs in this period are met, children become assertive, develop sense of purpose, and start to evaluate their behavior. However, if needs are not satisfactorily met, they may develop a lack of confidence, they become pessimistic, and start to fear of wrongly judged. Now, stage 4, it is called school age. For children ages about 6 to 12 years old. Children are still dependent on their parents in their daily life, like preparing food, choosing what clothes to wear, bringing the children to school, and etc. That is why parents are still a part of the influential figure of during this time. Okay. Yet, children already become engaged in school activities and maybe spend more time in school. That is why teachers are already part of their influential figure. During this developmental period, children are also exposed to their friends in school. This time, they have to deal with the challenges in school, and with their playmates or classmates. Failure to meet the demands during this period may result in a sense of inferiority. But when demands are successfully met, a sense of industry will be experienced. Let me give you an example. This is based on my personal experience. When I was in grade 1, I had a very close cousin. We go to school together, and most of the time we play games together, like basketball, volleyball, and other games for kids. But I learned to write and memorize the alphabet than him. We even finished grade 1, but he didn't. But he still had some challenges writing his name. So I told him, hala, dili baya ka daw ato ni teacher sa grade 2 kung dili ka kabalo musulat sa imong pangalan. I was actually just trying to tease him, but I didn't know that he took it seriously. So during enrollment, I went to school with my mother, and his mother told me he didn't want to study anymore. So that's it. That is an example of inferiority. Because he felt incompetent then, he just decided to withdraw from school. So if children during this stage satisfactorily experience industry, they will be able to cope with the environment and its demand. They develop and manipulate things independently and master a sense of competence and perseverance. This means that they can already handle challenges and start to strive harder even in those difficult situations. However, if there is a sense of inferiority during this time, children will experience a loss of hope, become mediocre. That is, when there are things they need to do, they will just do it for the sake of completion, not for the purpose of producing an excellent outcome. Feeling inferior, or the feelings that others can do better than him or her, and withdrawal from school or peers, just like what my cousin did. Now, on stage 5, the adolescent stage, ages about 12 to 20 years old. During this time, teens already spend more time in school and with their classmates than with their parents. So, in this stage, teachers and significant others are already the most influential figures. Adolescence is one of the most crucial part of developmental stages because of puberty that results in challenges in the changes of the body, or hormones, and other physiological factors brought by adolescence. They may become vulnerable to mental health problems. Also, this stage is the formation of teens' identity. If I may ask you, can you describe yourself quickly? Do you know your strengths and limitations? Do you know what your likes and dislikes are? Do you know your personality? Or can you answer this question? Who are you? Perhaps, if you do not need to spend more time providing answers to these questions, you might have known yourself better or have already formed your identity. Do you know why other teens are having a hard time choosing their course? Or maybe having difficulty making a decision or what specific organization they want to join in? Or maybe some are jumping from one course or strand or program to another. Perhaps because they still do not know themselves. They are still in the process of discovering themselves, which is normal during this period. Teens like to experiment during this time while they are trying to search for their identity. For some, they want to be treated as adults and see some adult behavior as something cool to follow, which makes them vulnerable to risky behaviors such as smoking, drinking, and even premarital sex. And for some, as culturally influenced, they thought that doing those are marks of manhood. Teens also spend more time with friends, socializing with male and female friends that can likely influence their identity formation. There are a lot of venues to make friends and socialize. There is Facebook, there is Instagram, there's Twitter, and other social media networking sites. Just choose one. Or maybe some of you have accounts in all or most all of the social networking sites. But physiologically, their sexual hormones are developing this time, which makes them look for intimacy with a person in the opposite sex or the same, depending on the sexual orientation and gender preference. This may also lead to sexual experimentation. And this kind of experimentation, when not prepared or not fully educated about the possible things that happen, may lead to teenage pregnancy. Now, teenagers who indulged themselves in smoking and drinking might also end up becoming substance dependent or addict. Now, the question is, did they find their identity? That's an interesting question. But during this time, if teens are able to successfully develop a sense of identity, they can already plan and actualize their abilities and stay true to themselves. But if they are still not able to form their identity, hence they experience role confusion, they may feel confused, may be indecisive, and weak sense of self. The next stage is stage 6, the young adult stage or young adulthood stage, ages about 20 to 25 years old. If most of the previous stages have been satisfactorily met, like trust during infancy or identity during adolescence, in this current stage, young adults would not be having a difficult time building an intimate relationship with friends, or possibly with friends, family, including entering into a romantic relationship. Intimacy means the ability to fuse one's identity with that of another person without fear of losing it. However, the opposite is called isolation, which means the incapacity to take chances with one's identity by sharing true intimacy. So, during this time when the sense of isolation takes over, maybe this is the time we often hear the line, "Sana all," or "Magbuwag ra, gihapon mo," or somewhat like that. The young adults becomes impersonal, avoidance of commitment, and feeling lonely. Yet when intimacy is developed, there will be a strong need to form an intimate and loving relationship and a strong sense of commitment. So stage 7, it's called middle adulthood, ages about 25 to 65 years old. This time, middle adults normally begin to get involved in society and take responsibility for whatever society produces. At this stage, their focus is on the community, which could significantly influence their daughters, sons, or family in general. During this period, middle adults' attention are already centered on the instinctive drive to perpetuate the species. Perhaps this is the time when majority that are within this age are already married, have their own families, or at the later age, probably have their grandchildren already. Meaning, during this stage, middle adults are starting to enjoy a life with their family, friends, and significant others, which is why they like to teach and share them to the next generation. This is called generativity, which is defined as the generation of new beings as well as new products and new ideas. Probably you can hear your parents telling you to follow what they say because unang hakbang mo pa lang, pabalik na sila. Nanana. So perhaps those experiences they've gone through made them feel wise in dealing with their present life, which they also believe that they have to share to their sons and daughters or anybody younger than them. On the other hand, stagnation occurs when middle adults are too self-indulged. Perhaps if during this particular stage of their life they are still not able to build a stable job, a family of their own, and close or intimate relationship. Perhaps who experience a sense of stagnation would also show a lack of interest and commitment. They may also show shallow involvement in the world and pessimistic. Perhaps you will hear this line from them. Ah, nga nung mubutaragod ko, sila ra mga politicians man dato. Lugar ako binutar, wadyo ko na dato. This clearly shows no concern on what's going on in the society. Maybe because this person is still, maybe, busy meeting things needed for himself or herself. Okay, so the last stage is called maturity or old age, about 65 years old to death. During this stage, when old people have successfully met the most necessary needs in previous stages, for instance, they were able to build good good and intimate relationships, built a successful career, and enjoy the company of their grandchildren. Hence, these experiences will make them feel a sense of integrity. Integrity means feeling of wholeness and coherence, and ability to hold together one's sense of I-ness, despite diminishing physical and intellectual powers. Simply, at this time, those who experience the sense of integrity are those people who do not have regrets over their life's decision. Those who are already happy with what they have achieved and built in their life. As a matter of fact, those who experience a sense of integrity can already accept the inevitability of death. However, if how they lived their lives are mostly failures and regrets, they will feel despair, meaning they may feel hopeless and unable to find the meaning of life at all. Thank you. If you have any questions related to the topic, please feel free to send me a direct message through your Canvas account or through my personal Facebook account. Have a wonderful day and keep safe, everyone. Bye-bye.